What's up? Welcome to FF Interactive. Tuesday night, we are joined by Professor and the Captain. What's up, fellas?
What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, that was good high energy to follow me up there, guys. Much appreciated.
Like, how
As
y'all
always,
doing? Good. Great. All right.
as
Let's
always-
move on.
Ooh, which way is this? Kyle also. So
I can't be the guy who brings all the great content and also be the energy guy. It's got to be one or the other.
that's right. You can't
Either
be
you
the
want
brain and
top-notch
the brawn.
content from the professor or you
We
want
got-
energy.
Got our content guy, our good looks guy, and then me and Corey.
No,
Yep,
no, wait
here
a
we go.
second. I can also be the good looks guy too.
No, you can't.
I
Not
didn't
anymore.
I need to see this clip of me in the intro, and then
Go back to-
it's gonna get wild.
Just
All right,
let
we'll
Tony-
get that.
You can't be the good looks guy too. So you keep petting that animal on your face.
Can't have everything.
We'll let James be the good looks
Come
guy.
close.
Captain be the good looks guy. Corey, we messed up in the beginning when we started all this years ago and didn't pick nicknames. We just used our regular names.
I know.
And
Now,
now Tony and James have all this branding and nickname and shit, and we're just like,
we're just Corey and Kyle.
we're just Corey.
I thought Kyle wasn't named because like you just had monster and you yell at people and we're sleepless.
All right, so
Monster
tonight we are talking about some draft strategy. It is drafting season, so lots of drafts going on. Kyle, you were doing 3 drafts last night at the same time. It's just that time of year. So in a couple slow drafts right now, and every once in a while throwing in the live draft. So let's see. We got Clash with Joey over here. What's up, my man? And we have Mr. Sarcastic. Nice to see you back.
Bruh.
Loving it, Mr. Sarcastic. So we got people joining us on Instagram over here too. What's up, guys? So we'll take questions from Instagram as well throughout. So fun times, lots of drafting going on. So what we wanted to cover tonight is just kind of going with the flow during a draft, different draft strategies, how scoring in a league can affect your draft, things of that sort. So, Tony, I know you had mentioned going kind of in the different, there's so many different kinds of way to play fantasy football, redraft, dynasty, best ball, auction. What am I missing here?
Super flex.
Super flex. I mean, there's just, okay, so that's 5
Leagues
different
with
ways.
kickers.
Ugh. Okay. All right. Let's not go there.
Kickers
we all know
only.
kickers and defenses come last. Come on. We all know that. That doesn't affect anything. Some of us are purists and like kickers, whatever. So that's 5 different ways right there to play. And that right there alone changes your draft strategy going in quite a bit. So, Tony, I'll kind of kick it over to you and just kind of talk on that topic, starting on whichever one you want to kind of talk about first.
Well, what I would say is before we even get into the different types of leagues is to really do as much prep work as you can. You really want to spend time, at least I do, doing mocks. Fantasy Pros has a great kind of mock tool where you can create all different types of league setups, whether it's an auction league or a super flex, different types of settings with the positions, and just run through some mocks and just get a sense and a handle on maybe where some players might be. You can select your draft position. What I've also been doing, I've done a lot of this summer, is I've done countless best ball drafts, for an underdog, and there are tons of free codes out there online where they'll match your deposit. I have DraftKings account. I also have a best ball account. So I do a lot of best ball drafts, which are entirely different than redraft leagues. But
Yeah.
what I think it really helps me do is to see how other people are valuing players. Because at the end of the day, when I approach a draft, my draft strategy really is kind of in those early rounds. I want to try and get the safest guy I can get. If I'm picking at the top of the first, the middle of the first, end of the first, whatever it is, you don't want to miss those picks. I don't know that you necessarily win a draft in the first or second round, but you can lose drafts there. So, I want to pick guys who I think are very safe, have that upside, and then you're looking for value. where can you find value throughout the draft? And the best way to do that and to learn that is to do drafts. And the nice thing on Underdog, even on DraftKings, is you can do them. It's very inexpensive. You can do dollar drafts. You can do $3 drafts, $5 drafts, and you're not drafting against computers or kind of the auto pick. You're drafting against other guys. I'm assuming guys for the most part who are doing these, and I feel like that gives me a little bit of an edge.
Yep.
You begin to see the trends where guys are being picked and where you can start to find value depending on where your draft position is at. So before you even get into the leagues, a lot of it is you got to do your prep work. You got to be prepared so that when you go into your draft, you're ready. You want to be thinking about, what you're going to do when your pick comes, what direction you might go. But sometimes you get some curveballs. And so you got to be ready for that too.
Part of prep work is having that plan B, because it doesn't matter how many mocks you do and how many times certain players fall to you in these mock drafts and certain rounds and stuff. Inevitably, you will get in one draft where some guy will reach super far and grab somebody that should have fell and throw off everything that you did in your mock draft. So,
but that creates those value picks that Tony was talking about. Captain, go ahead.
Well, I just know, like, I've got two boys, right? I have two sons. One is 21, one is 18. So my youngest just graduated high school, and my wife, of course, was more behind this than I was. But the kid probably took a dozen practice SAT exams, and so just you practice, you take them so that when it comes to the real thing, you're prepared. And so that prep time is really invaluable if you're really serious about wanting to win your league. You got to put in the time.
Yep.
And to build on what you said too, I know that when you're talking about the best ball drafts and Underdog, like, we're not affiliated at all, but it's a really good way to prep, just because those leagues that are only $1, investing that small amount into some serious mocks helps, because look, people are sticking around right to the end of those drafts because there's huge pots available in those leagues. So people aren't like on the sleeper apps. Everyone dips after the first 4 rounds, which is wild to me because those are the easiest freaking rounds you could do.
Right.
It's the later rounds of where you're finding those value. So like for my prep, I'm mocking all the time, especially for people that get so set on strategies. It's like, I'm just going to mock 0 RB all day long from every spot. And they may only have 2 teams they're really excited about. And they're like, yeah, I got the team I wanted. I know what I have to do. And it doesn't go that way. Like you said, curveballs happen. What I like to do, because this year is actually a year I'm really into 0 RB strategy, just because of where the ADP for running backs is. It's incredible. There's so many guys. There's a lot of committees now. So what I've been doing is I've been mocking 0 RB, and then I'm doing the complete opposite. So I'm doing a whole bunch of mocks of best players available, doing a whole bunch of mocks saying if they're fading star running backs right now, I'm going to get as many as I can and see what wide receivers I end up with, and then compare to see which teams I like better. Because in my head, I might think, yeah, this is the year for 0 RB. And I'm finding out I'm mocking way better teams doing the complete opposite. So I encourage people to do that. Just do as much as you can, because it's the same thing. If everyone's doing 0 RB, everyone's going to dilute it for everybody else. So it ain't going to work. You want to go against the current for what everyone else is doing. That's where you're going to find values and things.
But I'm just going to reiterate the importance of when you're doing mock drafts, the importance of what you guys are saying of doing against real people. When you're going against those computers, I mean, they're just going next best available, especially based off of whatever you're doing the mock drafts on. It'll be sleeper. If you're doing it on sleeper, it'll be their ADP, and kind of their ranking and stuff like. So it's nice to do it against real people, so you get a feel of how people are actually feeling about these players, what they're thinking about these players, and those oddball moves that a computer isn't really going to have. It's actually pretty predictable what the computer's going to do. Now, one more aspect, it was slightly touched on earlier by the professor, but I think we all learned today the importance of looking at the scoring of a league also before the draft, and that goes into prep work as well. Kyle, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we keep getting in all these different leagues with different pages and stuff like that, and every one of them has different scoring. So a good example is this league that we're in. It's actually a group of leagues, but all of them have the same rules. And so there was a tight end reception bonus that most people didn't catch.
Yeah, the two below.
And I did, and Corey did. And so everybody thought we were idiots for drafting tight ends super early.
Multiple.
And
tight
then,
ends
yeah,
early.
and multiple tight ends early. Instead of mediocre running backs and receivers, we're taking another stud tight end. Everybody's like, what are you? And then they went and looked at the rules, and oh, by God, it is a tight end premium. So you definitely want to just pay attention to little changes like that too, that make things like another good example that you see a lot is the difference between 4-point and 6-point passing touchdowns. Okay, if you got a 4-point passing touchdown, that makes Russian quarterbacks way more valuable. Whereas you got 6-point ones, not as much. There's still a difference, but it's not as big. So things like that are things to look out for when you're looking at.
And in the scoring, if you're wanting to know how that scoring affects the players and the league, a good thing to do is go back into the scoring for the last season and see the order that the players finished in, right, for the previous season. And that'll kind of give you a good idea of how that scoring system affects the value of those players. So like this tight end premium one, when you go look at all the players last year in their scoring, and Kelsey is like 5th overall. Well, okay, well Kelsey's got quite a lot of value in that league, right?
Yeah,
And
that includes QBs. That includes QBs,
including quarterbacks. So he finished that high, right? So it gives that big advantage not only to position, but I mean in the league overall, he was the 5th overall player in the league or something like that. So when you want to see the effect of that scoring in that league, go back into the league history there and see the scoring for the previous year, and it'll kind of outline that for you. Illustrate it. That's the word I was looking for. Illustrate. All right, real quick, let's hop over here to the chat real quick. AJ is present. Appreciate that. No autographs, no pictures, please. AJ Brown in the chat. How bad is my team? Supper Reach. Don't know what.
Super Reach? What is that? Reach draft.
Super Reach.
I don't know.
He says that again later too.
Yeah, he says that again later, so I'm not sure.
I don't know what that means.
Maybe they were eating for reaching something. I don't know. Let's see. How running back Jones Pierce.
Brain rob sounds like it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see.
I like his wide receiver group.
Not a fan of the tight end. Love the receivers. I don't hate the running backs or the QB. A-Rod, I think, will do all right for you, but
yeah,
I'd work on that tight end spot for sure.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Wide receivers, good, real good,
really good, especially if it's a PPR league.
Yep. Says looking to trade JJ for like a 2-for-1. I don't like my running backs, so
I would never trade JJ for anything.
I think you have to get a lot. Like
it'd have to be a lot.
I'd be looking. I don't know. Like, let's say one of the pieces is Austin Eckler. What do you need with Austin Eckler or Justin Jefferson?
Kelsey. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, seriously, use it to upgrade your tight end if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah, because
if you can trade JJ for a CMC or an Eckler and a tight end upgrade, like
I don't think you're going to be able to get that much, but I think you can look
Kelsey. I'm saying like if you can trade Kmet with Jefferson to get like a CMC or an Eckler and even like an Okonkwo, like I would take that.
I think you could do. What about an Engram? I think you could even get an Engram upgrade in there.
Engram, Schultz, maybe
Goddard,
perhaps.
But I don't know,
like guys like that.
It kind of depends. If it's a tight end premium league, it's definitely worth upgrading. Like Kmet's a weird one for me, just because the Chicago offense is appearing to be better, and so I know Kmet was getting some looks last year with Fields. Like I think he actually led their team in receiving. So Kmet's a tough one to evaluate just because there's so much hype around other tight ends, but he could be sneaky good.
Who's the other tight end on their team now? They brought in someone else too, right? Didn't Chicago bring in another tight end too?
Did they?
Oh, Tunyon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah,
not a huge threat,
Moldenberger.
but I mean, when you're already probably not getting that much, that's a threat. Let's see. Tony's background almost as good as Kyle's.
Can I comment real quick? Do you mind if I comment on that trade?
Hell no, go back, man. I was hoping you would.
Yeah, rock out. The last thing that I would do would be to trade JJ.
Yeah.
Don't trade Jefferson. Jefferson is kind of the equivalent of Kelsey at the tight end position. He's such a sure thing. He's such a lock. He's such a weekly advantage for you at the wide receiver position. That's not the guy you want to move. If you're gonna do a trade, first off, it would be nice to know what your roster structure is.
Yeah.
What you're starting each week. If it's two running back, 3 receivers in a flex, or two in a flex, whatever that might be. But I would look to do a different type of a package and try and get an upgrade. But I definitely wouldn't be looking to move. Jefferson basically is the heart of your team, and without Jefferson, he's the one difference maker on your roster. That's the last guy that I would part with. So I would maybe, do like a Keenan Allen and a Brian Robinson, or even a Pierce combo, and try and upgrade a position, something like that.
Yeah, that's what I would do too.
I'm not crazy about Mike Evans this year in that offense. So Mike Evans is a guy maybe that I try to move with to a receiver needy team. You drafted JSN. He might not be good for the first, 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So, maybe you can kind of try and find a trade someplace else. But anyway, my big point is I would not be moving Jefferson.
Yeah.
You've got to move Jefferson. It has to be a trade where you get the offer and you just cannot turn it down.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so good. But Jefferson, to me, is not a guy that I would trade.
Especially your running backs aren't that bad. Like, I wouldn't be panicking on trading Justin Jefferson. If you had Pierce and Brian Robinson, if you take away Aaron Jones, as if you didn't even draft him, then I'd be starting to worry. But honestly, Jones and Pierce are fine. They're guys that are starting. They're on mediocre offenses, so they're gonna be factors. Like, they're gonna be involved a lot.
And let me say this too, real quick, Captain. And this might not land well with the captain, because I know the captain likes Swift, but Gainwell could be a guy, talking about value in the draft. That guy could be a steal of the draft, because all reports coming out of Philly is that Penny's going to be cut. The beat reporters are all saying Gainwell is going to be the starting running back in that offense. Swift is going to be more in a receiving back role. So that just hang on to Gainwell. That was a good grab there, because I'm sure you got him very late in the draft, and watch that he doesn't get that starting nod in Philadelphia.
That'd be crazy.
Well, they've been talking about him all season as the number 1 back. And if you check the Philly blogs and you check the beat reporters, they're all reporting Gainwell's going to get the RB1 in that offense.
AJ Brown from camp here is laughing at you, but
you can laugh all you want. But they trust Gainwell.
I completely agree.
He replaced Sanders last year. Sanders was the
great
back
last year. Yeah,
he overtook Sanders. They trusted him in the playoffs. They rode him, and the coaching staff is really they really have a lot vested in Gainwell, and believe in this kid. So.
Well, and
for
give
everyone
it 3
that's
and for what it cost you nothing to get him. It's a good pick.
Yeah, and I do love Swift a lot. Like, I can't get over how this was a guy people loved as like a top 5 running back perennially on a bad Detroit offense, and he goes to Philly, where he's going to get no respect from defenses, and he's known for tearing off big runs. Even if he gets 10 touches, he could take that for 70 yards. Like, that's what's gross about DeAndre Swift. So, like, I love the guy. I do. But Gainwell, I loved him as a prospect. He is so dangerous. Like, for everyone that loves A-Chain and loves Deuce Vaughn as little guys, Gainwell is a very good runner. He's a very good player. And it's sad that Swift went there over Gainwell, because I wanted to see him take over this offense. I have him in a lot of leagues. And it's unfortunate, but he's a really good handcuff to have. for sure,
Well,
and there's
let's
value with him.
just know that 5 weeks in, that Penny and Swift will both be hurt anyway, and Gainwell will just get a shot by default. So doesn't even
That's
really matter.
true.
All right. Over here on Instagram, I got a question. It says a 12-team half PPR. First pick is JJ. Who is second, CMC or Chase?
CMC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going
I
to go
think you gotta
CMC
go
over Chase.
CMC.
I feel Captain's going to be opposite here.
Sorry, what was the format it was in though?
12-team half PPR. Who's number 2 pick in there if JJ goes first?
Yeah, it's gotta be CMC.
Yeah, I think so.
If it was full PPR, maybe Chase, but it's close. You could I'm happy any of those three. You can go in any what order. I just want the third pick.
You want the third pick so you don't have to choose?
Yeah,
Yeah, someone,
because then I'm
the
getting
other people
value.
choose for you. Yeah,
If
exactly.
I get second and he finishes third overall, I lost value.
Yeah.
Third, I have a chance.
Hot take. I mean, Chase isn't finishing third overall in the top 3 overall, so that's not even going to happen. So you'd be losing value on Chase anyway. Just throwing that out there. All right. So let's kind of get back into the draft strategies. We've kind of covered the prep. Now I'm going to kick it back to you, Tony, like I was going to earlier. But great to take us on the prep. You're right. That is step number 1. So let's say redraft, right? You kind of want to talk on redraft for a little bit, kind of go kind of step by step and the differences in that.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it is you want to talk. I think, it's very helpful when you do the prep to kind of get an idea of value and where players are going to go. And then the next thing you're going to want to kind of evaluate is where your draft position's at. That really dictates, I think, for me, many times will dictate the strategy. I think if you are at the 1 pick this year, it's probably the best spot to be, I think, to kind of get Justin Jefferson on your roster right there at the beginning of the draft. If you don't have the 1 pick,
format, that's in every format.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, and I think after that, I'd almost prefer to be at like the 5-6 spot, just because at that spot you're going to get a top elite stud player, whether it's CMC, Eckler, Chase, Kelsey, Kupp, Hill. Those are the guys that typically go in the first 5 or 6 picks, and so it lets you get a better player on that second round when it snakes back. But for me, that kind of, depending on how the draft goes, my strategy, and this is what kind of goes with what Kyle was saying, my strategy may change depending on where those players go and where I'm at in those first 5 or 6 picks. And then, of course, the same thing on the back end. I'm kind of keeping an eye on who was taken in those first 5 or 6. And then, what am I going to do on the back half of the draft? And then who do I think I'm going to get on the turn?
Flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to go into a draft and have a strategy as far as if you're going to do kind of a hero RB strategy, if you're going to punt on running back and try and get somebody late. You really want to know who are some of those dead zone running backs that you're going to be able to get in the later rounds, or the receivers. Maybe you like the depth at the receiver pool a little bit more. You want to make sure you get an anchor. For me, I'd like to kind of walk away with an anchor at both positions. Or have an anchor RB and an anchor receiver. And that just gives you a lot of flexibility, so you're not painting yourself into a corner when it comes back to you in rounds 3 and 4, where if you go receiver, you're almost forced to take a running back in round 3, unless you kind of go receiver. But I think you start to limit your options. So I try to keep myself where I'm not limiting my options. And I can get an anchor, get an RB1, get a wide receiver 1. And then when it comes back, I can start looking at best available, what the trends are, what's taking place in the draft, who's there, where I can get value. You're starting to evaluate those sorts of things.
Kyle, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree. I think definitely where you're at dictates that. Because if I'm at the beginning, I'm finding myself doing more hero RB. Like if you end up with a CMC or an Eckler up there, and then the next, 2 or 3, you end up with a pair of really good receivers. If I'm at the back half, I'm starting with a pair of really good receivers. And then instead of chasing running backs in that 3-4 turn, I'm looking at like a top tight end and a top QB. If you're right in the middle, I think like Tony was saying, kind of that 5, 6, 7 is where the anchor strategy works the best.
I think what.
Well,
go ahead, Tony.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say I'll use this up. So we're all doing drafts right now on Sleeper.
Yep.
I happen to pick in the 2 spot. And so my strategy going in there was going to take either Justin Jefferson or CMC because I think they're the 2 safest players at their positions that could both finish easily as the wide receiver 1, RB1. So the number 1 pick was JJ. I took CMC. Now my plan was to take an elite receiver with the 2 pick, but I didn't anticipate having Pollard drop down to the end of round 2. So I thought it was great value to get a second RB1. And I thought I thought there were enough receivers there. Mara was there. Garrett Wilson was there. There were a few guys there that I thought I could leave one of those and grab him in round 3, which is what happened. I got Garrett Wilson in round 3. And when I was looking at the running back pool coming back to me in round 3, I'm thinking if I don't take Pollard here, I'm going to be looking at guys like, the kind of the usual suspects. I'm looking at the Mixons. I'm looking at the Najee Harrises and, those types of guys. And I just felt this was a time for me to lock up the running back spot. And then I can kind of play to receiver, which in our particular draft worked out. I got DJ Moore and wound up with Fields in the 5th round. So kind of all fell into place that way. But that was not necessarily my plan. But I do think, kind of having a strategy and then be willing to kind of adapt depending on how the draft flows is important.
Yeah, I think you touched on kind of an important thing here. You were kind of at that coming up on that the end of the 2nd round, about to turn into the 3rd, right? And so what I like to do is look at the player pool, right? And like you said, you're looking at a wide receiver there. But then when you're looking at the pool of wide receivers there and you count and you're like, oh, there's 4 wide receivers here that I would be happy to have. I would love to have them here, right? And so even if I pass on a wide receiver and 2 receivers go between now and my next pick, I'm going to be perfectly happy getting the 3rd person on my list. Like they're all kind of even, right? So take that value pick at running back, where if running backs are kind of starting to run low and you want that high value running back, let the other person that's picking kind of make that decision for you.
Right.
Kind of like what Captain was saying earlier with, I want pick 3. So the other person makes the decision for me. Yeah. Let the other person kind of whittle those wide receivers that you love. And maybe you're having a hard time choosing between. Let them whittle that down for you. And take a good value pick there with that pick. And go ahead.
You got to be looking ahead and figuring out where you consider the tier drops to be, right?
Tiers, yeah.
Where are the tier breaks at in these groups? And if you're approaching a tier break in one position over another more rapidly, then probably want to jump in there and get that.
Well, the worst thing to do is get caught up in a run of a certain position and get at the end of that run, right? Because you're probably picking up someone lower in that tier, right? And so if you get caught up in a wide receiver tier, maybe you are passing on a higher tiered running back. So you're looking at those values. You may have to change strategy there because you don't want to just settle for this lower tiered wide receiver that if you went ahead and waited, till your next round, you're going to get someone of the same value in maybe that same tier or something. Captain, I heard you say, yeah. What are your thoughts on this tier thing?
Well, I've been really excited because that's the whole way I make my rankings. It's a lot of people will make rankings like it's this guy, it's just individual players, and that's all well and good, but I feel like you miss out on a lot of things there. I think making your own tiers of players, because not just ignore ADP, guys that you like in your tiers, and you make those, and you're just scratching guys off, because you could be at the point where you're at 2 tier breaks for players. Yeah, you go best available at that point and really see where the next drop off is. But to me, like looking at them in tiers is so important, because if there's a guy in your 2nd tier who's going super, super late, Like for a lot of people right now, that's Javonte Williams. That's a guy that is a first round talent if he's healthy, no question. And he's going really late in the 6th round. That's a huge value. So for some people to say, oh, I'll just reach and take him in the 5th, ADP says that's a reach, but it's like everyone else is like, wow, you got Javonte in the 5th. That's absolutely wicked. So that's why I think it's important to make categories without looking at ADPs of players you want. Create your own tier breaks, because you're going to find you may get guys coming up ADP. It's like, hey, this guy's way down there. He's still in my tier. I can be addressing other positional tiers that I have where there's tier breaks. And so I just love that mentality. I'm glad you guys brought up, because it's how I draft everything. It's all in groups of where's the biggest drop off. And if it's not here, like, then I'm waiting. Like yeah.
I mean, it kind of comes to the point where you're looking at a group of people and you're like, they're all kind of all the same player to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tier for me. If I'm like, I'd kind of be happy with any of these players because they're all kind of the same. And honestly, I'd rather wait and let other people make that decision for me. Maybe I'm picking from 2 of them at the end. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not. That's kind of how I'm doing.
That's a really great point. And when it came back to me, I was going to kind of touch on that too. And that's exactly what happened. Just to kind of use my example just for context, Pollard was the last running back that I had in tier 1 for me personally. And then there were maybe 5 receivers in tier 2. And so exactly what Kyle was saying, I had 5 guys there maybe that I liked. And I saw Pollard as the last value in that tier 1 RB group. So I grabbed him, and then just whoever was left, I just picked the one I liked the best. But let me also say this about tier, and I'm sure you do this too, Cap, is don't be afraid. Unless you're really kind of building your own tiers, because many times I'll use a tier that maybe gets close to how I value players. But I may look at that tier group and I may see a guy lower, sometimes a tier, sometimes 2 tiers below. And I think it's, the guy is probably not properly valued. And so what I want to say is don't be afraid. If there's a guy you're really bullish on that you really love, don't be afraid to draft that guy. Sometimes you get cute and you wind up losing. And in a perfect example, kind of in our draft, is Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, I love this year. McLaurin now with his toe injury, love him even more. And he's like a tier 7, tier 8. If you look at most of the tiers, for me personally, he's more like a tier 5 receiver, kind of in that Christian Watson grouping. He isn't going anywhere near that. So he's a guy for me, just as an example, who's great value. And I may not sit and wait on that guy. You may want to try and grab him. Now, somebody, of course, also thought the same way and grabbed him before I did. But it's important to have the tiers. Just don't be afraid to kind of move outside of that. If you have a guy somewhere that you really love, get your guy.
Well, that's something we've said on here in past years too. Like, get your guy. Don't worry about what other people value him at or what other people think. Like, if you want that guy, get your freaking guy.
And sometimes that requires you to reach for him a little bit.
Yep.
Especially because if you think, you may have to reach for someone, but what may be considered a reach, they wouldn't have made it back to you. You got to think, in a 12-team league, it could be 20 picks before you pick again. So yeah, you may have had to jump up, a little higher than you would want to, but would that person have actually made it to you 20 picks later? Maybe not. So maybe you are having to jump up and draft someone a round or 2 earlier than you would like, because that person won't make it back to you. So it seems early, but if you want him, you got to go get him. Yeah. Millie Mills in the house. What up? So I just got a question. Does anyone else like to sometimes make a pick, a little spiteful or defensive pick? If you see someone, or maybe like something for trade bait later on, right? Say you have a tight end premium league and other people aren't drafting these top tight ends, and it comes to the 4th round and you're like, okay, another top tight end is there. I'm going to take one to kind of trap some of these other teams into not having that top talent, maybe trade bait later on, or start a tight end run, because now you're starting to put a little fear in people. Captain, what do you think on that?
Yeah, and I've done both. I find I do it in only a couple of my home leagues. And that's because I know there's going to be, or even some other leagues where I know there's a lot of trading. So if I know people are avid traders, I'm totally about that because I know it's like, oh, like this guy totally sat on quarterbacks and I grabbed a bunch of them in the middle rounds. I know I just turned that 7th round quarterback pick into a 5th round running back or wide receiver pick. So I gained 2 rounds of a player from doing that. But then there's other leagues where I know ain't nobody training, no matter what. Everyone's going to sit still. So then it has to be something where I can benefit. Like in a tight end premium league, though, that's where there's value. But in some other leagues where I can just hoard quarterbacks, it ends up just biting me and wasting bench spots.
Yeah, to me, I find that like a tight end is probably the best place to do that because there's such an advantage, positional advantage in a week because you kind of got your top guys and then there's a huge cliff, right? And then everyone's just kind of the same. You've got like tier 1 Kelsey, then you've got a tier 2 with like a Hawkinson, Andrews, maybe Kittle's probably next tier, whatever. But then you kind of get down there to where everyone's kind of the same. So for me, it's almost like that positional. And then tight ends like Hawkinson or something as a second tight end can be plugged into your flex spot too. So maybe they're a good flex option. So not only are you taking that tight end, that top tight end away from somebody else, but you've also gained a good flex player. Tony, you have anything to add on this? Okay, it looked like
I have I've got a couple of leagues I do with friends of mine. We've been doing for 15, 20 years. So we all know who, teams or players that we like. So we may do it just to kind of screw somebody that way. Or I got a friend of mine, he's a huge KC fan. So I know if I get, Mahomes or Kelsey, that, he'll give his left arm to get him off my roster, that type of stuff. Or, I do an auction league. And so we'll bid guys up knowing that somebody is in love with this player and he's maybe from Alabama and I'm going to get Jahmyr Gibbs or I'm going to get Ridley. And so we can bid those guys up. And so, we just do gamesmanship that way.
I mean, sometimes defensive is kind of the way to go. I mean, I kind of just did that in this league. The quarterbacks are pretty important. And there were 3 teams in this 8th round that didn't have quarterbacks. And I took Trevor Lawrence as my second quarterback. I was the first person to take a second quarterback. So I have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence. And it kind of caused a scare. And now other people are having to settle because now they're like, oh, I got to get my first quarterback. And now they're having to take these quarterbacks that are lower in ranking because now they're scared they're not going to get even one of those guys. Yeah. So I kind of started a little quarterback run late and to let some of that other talent that I needed on my next turn to come around to me. So it was a little slimy, but you got to do what you got to do.
I do find I get defensive in auction leagues. Hearing Tony talk, I definitely do that. I always target the players I know can take a lot of money and I don't want to touch. So like for years, it was always the Mahomeses because I know they're going to take up so much of my money in auction leagues. So I don't want to touch them. I want a bunch of value guys. I want to be sitting there where I'm not drafting any of the first 12 guys being taken. I want everyone blowing money so I can get a bunch of mid-tier players. And it works great for auction leagues. So it's like for years, it was, let's get Brady in here, a guy I have no interest in, but someone will pay stupid money. Let's get CMC in here. Just all the players I don't want, I'm not nominating. I'm trying to like keep it quiet, keep my mouth shut, just talk up all the other players everyone else likes. So I get really defensive because I want all the players I have no interest in gone early, taking people's money so then I can get the values I want. So I find auction leagues, you definitely want to be defensive. Like don't go crazy nominating guys, especially if you have chats. Don't be saying, oh, nominate this guy. I want to get this guy. Definitely don't do that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Little reverse strategy there. Let's see. Okay. I'm taking Justin Tucker 3rd round. Thanks, guys. You got
Great
it.
value. That's a value pick if I've ever seen one.
Tier 1.
Especially in a kicker only league.
Oh, crushing it. Clash with Joey says one of my tiers are Walker, Akers, Madison, Pierce. You guys like. Out of that group, I'm probably taking Pierce first. And then Madison, or maybe Madison or Pierce. I'm probably taking.
I think. Go ahead, make your case. There's there's a clear standout there for me. I do like Walker.
I like
But-
Walker. He's not. He's.
I got to go with Madison
clear.
there, top.
I think I don't think it's Akers, bro.
I just don't think Madison's that good.
I don't think he's that great, but Pierce looked good with a horrible offense, still pushed through. So Pierce for me is the top guy in that.
And generally speaking, you don't want running backs on crappy offenses. So Pierce for me, he's a guy I just don't trust. Here's the thing with Akers is they don't have anybody else carry the football there. He tore it up.
Zach Evans. I like Zach Evans as a rookie.
Zach Evans isn't going to get any run there.
I like the way he runs.
Akers,
I love the way he runs.
The last 6 games of the season last year, Akers finished as the RB4 overall. So I just think the upside is there. He's going to be involved in the run in the running game, the passing game.
That's also because Cup was gone. They had nothing else.
What's that?
Cup and Stafford
Cup was also gone.
But I think that opens things up for Akers. So
Maybe,
for me, in that
grouping there,
in that particular grouping there, for me, I think Akers is the clear pick. If it's not Akers, then I'm going Walker because I think Walker is a freak stud. I'm just a little bit nervous about what his role looks like in the offense with Charbs.
Yeah,
and it's not so much the passing role; it's more, that guy Charbs is a run. He's like a rhino, and I'm just concerned about him getting the goal line touches and maybe losing some of those TDs, which is really always a variable for fantasy. But
look at what Mitchell and CMC did last year.
If there's a knock on Walker, is he wasn't very efficient with the short yardage and the touchdown carries. What'd you say?
Well, look at what Mitchell and CMC were those first few.
CMC's both were very. Different guy, though.
I don't think it matters because I think Seattle, Geno did more than any of us expected with that receiving core. So I think you could literally just interchange those guys for drives, like Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, even. I think both guys could be relevant, but I think their offenses, the wide receivers are too.
No.
So I think
I'm not knocking Walker. I like Walker. What I'm saying though is that
he's got the best floor. I think. That's why I like him.
I'm talking purely about role in the offense and the fact that Akers isn't going to split touches with anybody. He's going to get the goal line touches. He's going to get the receptions. He's going to be the true 3-down workhorse back in that offense. And he proved it last year. I think
Zach Evans is sneaky.
Okay.
I like him as a rookie. I think he's a big body guy. He runs well. I love watching him run. He's got a good looking run to him.
I like.
I'm to debate it with you. I've made my point, and ultimately pick the guy you like.
Madison's going to be a 3-down back on a good team. Tony, why is he?
Yeah, but he sucks.
What's funny is the trajectory of Madison.
He's got no burst.
So Madison, for however many years, everybody's been like, man, if Cook wasn't there, he'd be such a stud, blah, blah, blah. And then this offseason, he finally gets that, and everybody's like, nah, it won't translate to more than 2 games. And it's like, all of a sudden, all the love and hope shifted to hate immediately. It's just like, whatever.
I don't think it's hate. I just think, Madison is a guy.
It is from
Chandler seems to be getting a lot of. I think he's got an opportunity to carve out a bigger role in that offense, and
he's faster, more bursty.
And so it's not necessarily the hate for Madison, but I don't know. I don't know if I trust him season long. I think Chandler is going to become a bigger and bigger part of that offense as the season moves on.
Well, and I think people need to look at what last year there was a big difference between Zeke and Pollard and Madison and Cook. Pollard looked good, and I was a Pollard hater last year, and I'll admit it. I'm much higher on him this year because he showed enough. He was explosive last year. He was getting passing down work. It looked good. Madison was getting none of that. He didn't look bursty when he got opportunities. When you're that guy, for years I said Pollard looked good because he wasn't getting the respect of defenses. He's on the field, no one's looking at him. And that's Madison. But even when Madison's out there, it's the few times he's looked good the last 2 years, they were against the worst defenses in the league where anyone could run on them. And so I don't think he's a good runner. I just don't think so. I don't think he's fast. I don't think he's bursty. He's Jordan Howard. That's all he is to me.
Ouch. All right. Moving on here real quick.
One thing that's interesting about Madison before I move on is that the stats that were compiled for Madison to show that he was a true RB1 based on 4 games where he started. 3 of those games were against Detroit. So I don't know how accurate those stats are.
Love that. Detroit. Millie Mill says, I'm doing that this year by going QB in the first. F it. I'm getting my guy. Mahomes are hurt.
There you go, Millie. I love it.
You're going to reach for it. That's funny. It says, preferably Hurts, though. I'm trying to stack him and AJ and Goddard. Yeah. I think going Hurts first round, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time getting AJ too, depending on where you're at. But getting AJ could be tough. Let's see. Captain at Kappa Canadian, maybe?
Capdadian.
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 Capadadian.
I tried that one year with bidding. I ended up paying too much for Jalen Hurts. Don't.
You just don't stop at some point.
You got to know when to stop because they will screw you back if you're not careful.
Yeah, I've let people stick with a high bid. When I knew they were bidding me up, I'm like, nah.
It's like, congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Full PPR, which start would you rather have? Chase, Waddle, Gibbs, or CMC, Waddle? Okay, hold on.
Okay, this is very confusing.
Okay, would you rather have Chase, Waddle, Gibbs, or CMC, Waddle, Olave, or D. Smith? So it's looking for.
I think the second one is safer.
I like that Chase, Waddle, Gibbs.
See, I like it because I like Gibbs, but I think having CMC as your RB1 is so much safer. But then again, there's safe guys that you can get in the 4th round for running backs too. But that first one is so spicy. I like it a lot. But
I can see CMC,
both are very good.
I can see CMC literally seeping out of Tony's mouth right now. He's just waiting to say it.
No, you can make I can make a case for either. I think it really comes down to what you think Gibbs is going to do this season. That really is going to decide it for me. Do you think he's going to finish as an RB1? CMC, I think Captain hit it on the head. I think that's the safer option. You're really looking at CMC, Olave, or Gibbs and Chase because Waddle's in both. So CMC, Olave, Devonta Smith, or Gibbs, Chase. And I'm not overly concerned, but just with the Burrow injury, and Olave to me is such a value. The guy, it's in the range of outcomes that he finishes in the top 3 receivers in that offense with Carr. So, and they've got a great schedule this year for passing offense. So I like that Olave. I like Olave even over Devonta Smith, only because I think Olave has a clearer path to a real wide receiver 1 role. And Devonta Smith, I think, is a safe wide receiver 2, but I don't think he's going to be I don't think he has a path for a wide receiver 1 type role, where I think Olave does.
Well, and that goes back to what Professor said to start, where leagues aren't won in the first 3 rounds, but they could be lost. So if the role we expect for Gibbs isn't there, you've burned a really high pick, and that's the risk. But it could work out, so that's the risk.
Yeah.
So.
And I like Gibbs. I love Gibbs actually, but he's more of an RB2 for me.
I'm personally going with the CMC, Waddle, Olave, and I like Olave over Smith. Easy for me, but yeah, that's the one I'm going with. Again, like Captain just said, like it's a gamble. It could pay off. It couldn't. And I'm more of a safe kind of guy, and I know what CMC can do. And I love Waddle and I love Olave. And I think Chase could be a bit overrated this year. Overdrafted maybe a little bit. So let's see. Why did my thing? AJ said, see you tomorrow. Creep. Why you see me tomorrow? Says Missy Tone. Let's see. Talking about going and getting your guy. I love Fields and T-Law this year. Is 4th too early
my
for
guy.
Fields, and is 5th too early for T-Law?
Nope.
What?
No, I like those.
It's the 4th round too early for Justin Fields. I mean, it's probably a round early for me, but I don't see anything wrong with it.
Depends where you're drafting in the 4th.
And it depends on what quarterback's already off the board.
But
Fields, if your league's drafting QBs and you're afraid you're going to miss them, get them.
Yeah.
Well, because for me, I could see Fields becoming like a Hertz type and T-Law becoming a Burrow type, like a Herbert type. So like those two guys specifically are those values as to why I'm willing to miss Mahomes, Allen, Hertz, because these guys they're that next level. Those are the like trying to for me, it's only early because I see them as values. So to get them in the 5th and 6th round, those are the picks that win you leagues. Getting a guy in the 6th round that finishes like top 10 at the position, that's huge. And so that's where those are the guys you want, or even top 5 at the position. That's where it happens.
Tony, you got
But
strong feelings?
Oh man, it's hard not to love Fields.
Yeah.
You know, full season, DJ Moore. You know, that guy, he could fit in again. We're talking about range outcomes. He could easily finish as the QB1 this year. And so depending where you're at in the 4th, I would not hesitate pulling the trigger on him. I like T-Law. I like T-Law too. But T-Law, if you do it, I kind of talked about this earlier. T-Law seems to be dropping an awful lot. People are not as excited. I think they're missing the boat on Lawrence, especially with Ridley there now, another year. You know, they've got a new coaching staff there. I love both of those guys, but I don't know that I don't think Lawrence has the type of upside that Fields does, simply because of his rushing ability.
Yeah, that ceiling is so high,
and so he's got such a high. Yeah, I mean, this guy could do some amazing things this year. I'm excited about Fields.
He said he's at 406, by the way. So
T-Law excites me in 6-point passing leagues too.
Yeah, I would be nervous, and kind of what Kyle was saying. If you know, see if the quarterbacks have gone, if the big 3 are off the board, and I would say 4 because Lamar Jackson now is kind of really, guys love him this year. I'm still a little bit nervous about Lamar. I'd rather have Fields over Lamar. But after those top 4, Herbert is in there. You know, but I think he kind of falls in that next tier. Herbert, you know, maybe 6, 7 with Trevor Lawrence. If you're there at the 4, 6, and Fields is there, and the other quarterbacks are gone, I would not be criticized at all for pulling the trigger there for Fields.
Yeah, Fields is made for fantasy football. Like that's just just like draw me a fantasy football quarterback. There's Fields. Like that's pretty much.
He's LaDainian Tomlinson with passes.
There you go. Yeah, he's crazy. Let's see, AJ. Let's see. That's not your house back there. Do a bookshelf. I personally like that.
I think he's been smoking a little bit tonight.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. I lost. Oh yeah, he said going T-Law and Fields like that, trying to get ahead of the QB run. So
yeah,
there you go, Captain's
bookshelf.
Yep, I love that. Thoughts on Pittman? Good question. McKenzie, Woods, or Pierce with Richardson at QB now. What do we think about those wide receivers there in Indy?
I think after Pittman, I think I prefer Pierce.
Yeah, I like actually maybe even a little more than Pittman. I like Pierce and Downs.
Downs is interesting.
Touchdowns.
I think Downs could be very interesting this year.
I also like Jelani Woods. Oh, he put Jelani Woods. I missed.
Yeah, yeah, he put Woods.
I saw Pittman, McKenzie, Pierce. I missed Woods in there. Yeah, I like Woods a lot.
I'm not sure that this is the year.
I don't think McKenzie.
Anthony Richardson really makes a bit, but Anthony Richardson is probably going to be developed pretty well because he has the quarterback coach that developed Jalen Hurts, if I'm not mistaken, and got Jalen Hurts on the right path when I thought Jalen Hurts was going to fail in the NFL big time. And look at him now. So I think Anthony Richardson could end up being something. I just don't know if this year is that year, but
I'm not touching those guys.
I don't think McKenzie will be.
I'm not touching him.
Well, I can tell you, I have stock in none of these guys. So,
what's AJ saying about me? He's talking about. He's saying that I need bookshelves. Is that what he's saying?
I think he was saying like he doesn't think that's your real house behind you or something.
Yeah, I think he thinks it
So-
looks like a backdrop, but
He wants to see you move something, I think. So
Oh,
that's an elaborate fake background.
dude,
So
technology these days is insane.
These backdrops are getting crazy. Where can I get a backdrop like that?
I'm just glad you had pants on, honestly.
Yeah,
Oh,
for real.
man.
Gonna pull the
So-
I
strap.
don't roll that way in his house.
Something to think about with Richardson though is because he's a rusher. How many yards do you think he can rush for?
A lot.
Because look at what Fields did last year.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Fields I think was like what just outside the top 5 for quarterbacks, and he only threw 2,200 passing yards. Like that's insane. Like he had barely over 3,000 all total yards, but like 1,000 that was rushing. So Richardson could do that. Like he could throw 2,000 passing yards, rush for 800, and be a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, they're willing to let go of Jonathan Taylor because they have a new running back in town. That's Anthony Richardson.
Basically. Yeah.
I mean, and being a rookie, he's probably quicker to tuck it and run than a more seasoned quarterback too. He's going to be quick to pull it down and just take off running, I think. So it could be very interesting. And then he could be hurt in 3 games. So hard to say if he keeps that up. But yeah, I'm kind of staying away from that whole group, if I'm being honest. In Dynasty, I know we said Downs. I like Downs. I like Richardson in Dynasty. And Kyle, you're big on Woods. I know too.
Yeah, I've got
Well, I
him
just like
both.
Pierce because the guy's like free.
Yeah, the value is good for sure.
He's
Yeah.
free. He's free for a reason.
Like he's ranked outside of the 200 on ADP. So like that,
What a
but like
surprise!
That's
I
up for
mean-
debate.
yeah.
Oh, let's see. We got Trey in here. Evening, my man. Did my first redraft of the year the other night. Care to rate the squad? Let's see, Trey. Let me see. He's got you guys can read that. Oh my goodness.
Rate the squad.
Wait, how many teams are
Good
in
God.
this?
Okay.
Is this like a 6-man league?
He totally cheated or something.
Full PPR pick 2 of 12.
No, he went.
No
He
super
went
flex
Chase.
or
Chase in the
premium.
first. Garrett Wilson in the second. He probably got Ramondre in the third.
No,
No, he
Waddle.
probably got
Where did he get
Waddle.
Waddle?
Lamar in
Waddle
the
in the
fourth.
third.
Oh, he got Waddle too. So Waddle was the third,
That's what I'm
right? So
saying.
he did
got
Chase
cheated.
and he
He
probably
Ramondre in
picked.
the
I
fourth.
bet you he picked at the 2 spot. Trey, you pick at the 2 spot.
Yeah.
He got Chase,
did.
Wilson, Waddle. Then he picked Ramondre and Lamar. Yeah, I mean that
And
makes sense.
then-
In a 12
Yeah.
man, like man,
Probably
that's
10.
How
I'd
do you
probably
get
say
Chase,
my
Weird things
guess is
happen,
Wilson,
man.
and Waddle in a 12-man league?
My guess is 10.
what?
No, he said 12.
No,
But
he
he
says
also
12
punt-
team league.
Oh, it is. Well, he punted. He punted running back. So he didn't. You know, he didn't take a
Punted
running
running
back.
back with
first.
Ramondre.
And Javante.
No, he
and
took Chase,
And he still
then
got
probably
Waddle.
Waddle and Garrett. Those are his first 3.
Well, I agree with that.
They got
But-
Ramondre.
Okay, Tony.
That's
I
how
said
you
he was
use zero
cheating. It was
RB.
hyperbole. That was me saying he had a good team. All right.
Gotcha.
This is
Fuck
how you zero
myself.
RB.
Yeah, this is
I like it.
that's a sexy
For a
team.
12 team, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
lord.
He crushed it.
Yeah, you did.
Rate
good.
this team 9.5 because I can't give a
Those-
perfect score. 9.5 out of 10.
The only thing I might have liked to seen you do, Trey, is, and I don't know where he went, but just because you have Javante, I probably would have liked to see you grabbing P. Ryan, just to know that, you know, depending on how Javante's knee does and holds up and how he's utilized, you got the 2 running backs in that offense.
Who would you have gotten him over?
I wouldn't have
That-
taken Penny. I probably would have kicked on Penny or Pittman. You know, he's got a lot of draft capital at the receiver position with
Yeah.
Chase, Wilson, and Waddle. And I'm just saying, if you're going to grab Javante, I'd feel more comfortable if I had P. Ryan as well.
Yeah.
It just
That's
blows
a
my
good
mind
point.
that we're talking about Pittman at that value now, right? Like before, and maybe even last year, we were talking about him being probably a top 5 rounds to top 6 rounds pick, and now it's just like he's getting picked at the very end, maybe.
It's not that I don't think he grabbed Pittman at a great spot. I just think you got that much draft capital at receiver. I'm trying to protect those running backs because he needs Javonte. Although James Cook is nice and so is White. I mean, he did good.
Yeah.
He did really freaking good.
The only thing I can even see he really needs to do is maybe upgrade at tight end. Go find a guy that has P. Ryan, and hopefully he's got a better tight end, and trade him some of these pieces you don't need.
Man, that's a killer squad. I like that.
Especially for a 12, that's stellar.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
9 out of 10.
He's playing with 11 children.
I was talking to Tony, but Canadian is incredible. El Capitan.
I actually can't get rid of it now. It's stuck. It's here to stay.
He's stuck in a library until
that's the first time he's ever been stuck in a library. That's for sure.
Someone gets him out of it in the morning.
Well, in front of the stacks, anyway.
Yeah.
Joey's at PPR.
I don't think it matters for me.
I was gonna say, does it matter?
Chubb.
Yeah.
This year, Chubb.
Yeah, I'm all in on Chubb this year, man.
I like Chubb, but
Tony, you're giving me a Chubb, buddy.
I mean, they're the same tier for me. Like this is.
I would agree with that.
I want the second
same
one.
Tier.
I want the second one.
I would agree with that. I absolutely love Chubb. I think he's going to be ridiculous in this offense, but I just got to think about Barkley stayed healthy. I just feel like he's got a chip on his shoulder. Didn't get the contract he wanted. Out to prove something. That's a dangerous place to put a guy as talented as Barkley. So I don't think he can go wrong. But
and what other? I mean, other than Waller,
he says half PPR. By the way.
Okay.
So okay. Well, if it's half PPR, then Chubb.
I was gonna say, and other than Waller, who does the Giants have on that offense? Like, it's kind of Barkley.
Well, they have 87 slot receivers.
That's true. Bunch of slots.
If you're talking, if it's standard, I think Chubb is RB1.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think in half point, knocks him a little bit, but I agree with you guys there. I'd prefer to have Chubb over Barkley.
Yeah, I agree on that.
PPR on Barkley. I think that gets in the nod.
Okay. Going back to your background, AJ says, "Oh man, how much is FF Network paying you down the short, Tony?" Yeah, paying well. Obviously, look at that. It's paying off. Let's see. AJ got a chubby. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I like Chubb a lot this year, but I agree, going back to you, Captain, about the tier. And that's what we were talking about earlier was kind of thinking about players in tiers. And that's the way you look at it. I'll let someone else make the decision for me. I don't like. I'm happy.
I've
with
seen
either
people
one.
in my 10 team. That was the turn. Like 110, 2-1 was Chubb Barkley.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of that this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's the gross thing. If you're at 9 and you're hoping, I just want whoever's left. People are taking both, and that's the scary thing. So you may have to make a decision between the two. And for me, it's Chubb. But yeah, if you're picking at 10, you're sitting pretty.
Last night I did my work league, and I was at 9. It's a 10-team league. I was at 9, and I got Chubb and Pollard.
Nice.
And Barkley went between. So
yeah. Guys, we're on our time here. There's just one more other thing I just wanted to touch on real quick about draft strategy, and that's when it's coming up to your turn. You do want to look at the team. Say like you're Kyle sitting at 9 out of 10, right? And you have 2 picks between you and your next pick, and you're looking at a quarterback early in the draft, say like 3rd or 4th round, and that guy on the turn has already drafted a quarterback. This is just a scenario, of course. Then you don't have to take quarterback at your first pick there, right? At the end of that round. You can wait till that next one because those next 2 picks aren't going to be a quarterback. Is this making sense?
No.
Unless it's a tight end and Corey and Kyle are the guy you're after, they will take another tight end.
I'm saying you can look at other teams' wants and needs.
Well, I had in this draft the other day, I was waiting on a certain running back to drop to me because I needed a running back. And the guy before me had 4 running backs and nothing else on his team yet. And I'm like, oh, I'm probably good. He times out, auto drafts my guy, and I had to go another way.
That's out of your control, though.
So
no,
sometimes you can't judge based on that.
No, but I'm saying sometimes you can look at other team structures, how they've already drafted. And so if some, like everyone in front of you that is about to pick after you has already gotten a quarterback, you can skip on quarterback for a little while, just that you're the same way you're looking at tiers is all I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that
And
makes
if you're
sense.
Wrigley,
Tony says it doesn't make sense, but no one cares what the professor.
I'm just busting chops. Yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if my
And-
words actually made sense. I know we know what we're talking about, but like
Kyle said in the very beginning of the show that everybody thinks that you're both idiots because you drafted tight ends early, and that's not true. I think you're an idiot, period, regardless of where you draft tight ends.
that's fair, actually. That's fair.
And, I know the one thing I use for tiebreakers too, if you're really stuck between 2 players, pick the guy you want to root for. Fantasy football is fun. Don't pick a guy you don't like. If it's close, take the guy you can cheer for. Have fun. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, so
between
pretty
an
much
Eagles
just don't
player-
draft.
I have so many Dobbins.
If it's between an Eagles player and anybody else, take anybody else.
Very true. All righty. Look at that. El Capitan, Tony both got shout outs.
Let us go, AJ. AJ's my guy.
We are just idiots. So anyways, all right, guys. So that's going to do it for us tonight. We are over time here, but Professor, Captain, thanks for joining us, and we'll see everyone next week.
Sounds good.